what the solar plane looks like in relation to Earth and the seasons. Just start out simply. Now, there's certain alignments that are very interesting that occur that most people don't realize occur. We're not looking at the precession of the equinoxes yet. We're just looking at the sun and its shield, the solar shield. And it's in the solar shield that all of the planets are actually revolving around the sun. It is the spinning of the shield and the spinning of the individual planetary shields that actually keeps the orbits in line. Now, normally, we've looked at the normal diagrams before of how planets and suns should sit with each other, where they should have this relationship between their north poles and their south poles, where they circulate and communicate energy. We don't have that happening in our solar system. All of the planets are turned at very odd angles, and those angles were done on purpose. They were specifically to make certain portals and wormholes line up with others in order to orchestrate this prime objective. So I just wanted to show you that they haven't given us the full thing of, okay, like what does our cycle look like, the 26,556-year one. There wasn't time to do that set of diagrams too. But it will be based on, here you see 12 points. They haven't gotten into aligning which ones or whatever because the alignments are messed up. So you have to like back engineer the mess up, and then you can pull out what the normal one was, and it takes hours, if not days, to do that. But they wanted us to see that basically, and this would just be the path that Earth takes around the sun. But there are certain things that Earth aligns with as it moves through these paths. One, right here, is at this alignment that that Earth would align with the galactic center, or the center of the Milky Way galaxy at that point. And it's really funny because some diagrams people show it's actually on the opposite side. There's a lot of things where you take a certain body of work and it actually has things inverted or reversed. But when you see how the natural structure is supposed to be, then you can see where it fits, and you can see that it was inverted or reversed. So we'll see some interesting things involving that in a little bit. But this is where, and what we're talking about align with, we're not talking about the North Pole aligning. All right? The North Pole of the planet pretty much stays at its 23.5 degree shift, tilt, and proceeds around this way, right? What we're talking about aligning are the rods and the chambers, because it's when the rods and the chambers, they're the ones on the horizontal planes, the front and back and the side to side. When rods and chambers align, very specific things happen. When it's a natural solar system, there's the active sparking and the open circulation on the horizontal, as well as the vertical circulation through the poles, north and south. But there's all sorts of very strange things that are occurring in our solar system to align us with the black holes that are at the center of the sun. Part of the gates were completely compromised back in, it started in 13,400, and then it progressed, further into 10,948 BC. And at this point, we have, the solar gates. There is literally 2 wormhole offsets in here that create this progressive time acceleration that's been occurring in stages, that they've been making happen in stages, in order to get to the point where in 2012 they could synchronize the gates and they could actually pull us into the center. So we're going to look at what some of the alignments are with the rods and see, not just the rods are side to side, the chambers are front to back. And we'll see what the alignments are. And then we're going to look at a little bit about what some other people have taught about the yugas and where that fits into this, because what's being taught about yugas out there right now. I mean, some of the Sanskrit stuff might still be accurate. If they're saying a yuga is about 150,000 years, they're the ones that are right, because it's actually 159,000 something or other years. Because inside of one yuga, there are 6 Yuego SAC cycles, and each of those is 26,556 years. So normal yugas are very long. What the perversions of the mathematicals that are being taught, along with spinning a Merkaba in the wrong direction and those kind of things, they're making them very short. What we call a Yuego, they're attempting to call a Yuga. And it started out where they took the natural Yuego cycle, 26,556 years, progressively accelerated things through the apparatus of alignments that you will see soon. And the first increment was from 26,556 to 25,920 years, so it speeded up. And then another one brought it up to 25,771, I believe it's right around there now as far as what the precessions are. There was a couple other things done in there too, like little increments and bumps. And there was also at some point, they haven't told me exactly what period, but there was somebody else trying to, one of the other Illuminati groups, trying to take the Templar stuff away from the ones who were doing it. And they actually slowed them down, so they had to go forward again. So they've been fighting over this for quite a while. But it all comes down to alignments here. Now, when we look at this, this is just simply, once we start to see the planet on it, it would be the precession of the seasons, right? This would be December 21st, the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, and it would move counterclockwise till we got to March, the spring equinox, again in the northern hemisphere. I just put the northern hemisphere ones in. It's like opposite for the southern hemisphere. All right, and it would proceed then, and they actually, it's like every 30 degrees, it is about, it's about a month. Every 30 degrees is about a month, and this is, is a full cycle around would be a year. 365 point something or other. I think it's point. I don't know if I have it on this one. It might, 365.2564 ish. That's what one of the science estimates that we've seen. So, we use that one. So that is simply the the precession of the seasons as Earth spins around the sun. But even as Earth spins around the sun, there are these things that the rods are aligning with, the rods or the chambers of other things. One of them is from here. We're way out in one of, more of the outer arms of the galaxy. But if you go all the way back into the center of the Milky Way galaxy, we're still a part of the galactic plane, and the galactic rods and chambers spin. They have their own cycle. I'm not sure what their time frame is, but at certain points they will align on this line with our solar plane, and then the solar chambers and rods will interface with those, just as the planetary chambers and rods will interface with those of the sun. And when stellar activation cycles happen, that's what it means. There are certain alignments of the rods and the chambers that allow for sparking, that allow the vertical stargates to open because the alignments in the horizontals. So you're going to see a masterpiece of macabre when you see what they've done to the normal structure of this. This is just showing here, we have Earth, and most people don't realize that we have Earth, and let's say if Earth was over here at the December winter solstice, right? It has its little axis tilt at the 439 or whatever, but 23.5, that's where its geographical axis is tilted. And it wobbles on its axis, and that's what gives you the larger cycle, the precession of the equinoxes. But basically, it just rotates around and around the sun. What you're not seeing is this one. This is parallel Earth, and it's actually, when we're over here in the winter solstice position, it's over here in the summer one. That we are literally linked electromagnetically. And if you look at the difference, now we have the same common solar axis north, right? We're tilted this way, looking at it from this angle, and they're tilted the other, same amount of tilt. When you add the tilts together, it comes out to be about 47 degrees difference between the two, which means there would be about a 47-degree difference between angular rotation and particle spin. That's why they don't run into each other and crash, because particles can move through each other at certain angles of spin and be invisible to each other. But literally, it is this on the other side. Wherever we are, it's opposite, except at certain points in the cycle, when we actually pass through each other. And that's points where right now parallel Earth is fallen. Its gates are fully under control of the wormhole structure, the alpha wormhole structure. And we pass through it regularly, twice a year. Right? And then the other point, I'll show you the other diagrams. It'll make a little bit more sense. But this is just to show you, solar plane, sun, Earth that goes around, and parallel Earth that goes around in the other direction. So Earth is going around in a counterclockwise rotation, where parallel is going around at its axis tilt in a clockwise rotation, which means they pass each other at 2 points in the cycle because their speeds are synchronized. And this is what they were trying to do back in the 10,948 BC period. They were trying to get that final synchronization down, and they managed to do it. Next one, please. And this is a series that took so long. These are all alignments, and they were very difficult to do, and there's a bunch of them. Okay. This one is in the northern hemisphere. the PCM side, our side, Particum side, winter solstice, Earth and parallel Earth chamber alignments through the solar time torus tunnel PCM omega wormhole. Now the omega wormholes, remember, are on our side, the PCM side, where the alphas are on the PKA antiparticle side. So if we look at, and the reason that most of the diagrams, I didn't even bother trying to track how these rotate, because these rotate once a full thing every 27 days, I believe. So there's another whole set of things. It would take a million diagrams. I actually need to animate it to see exactly where things spark and hit each other. But this is where we will be, our alignment would be in during every winter solstice period. And it gets right down to the point where if you know where the rods are, or what rods are where, and you take that into the maps, the flat maps that we looked at, you can actually tell where this point, where that peak of the alignment is. It actually starts at dawn on Greenwich dawn, which means where the 0 line is of, I get that confused again, longitude or latitude, the vertical ones, right? Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, north-south. Yeah. I always get those inverted in my mind. But anyway, where the Greenwich line is, when this alignment, when this line inside of this tube fully hits that point, and it's at the planet is at a tilt at this point in the not equinox, but in the season cycle, where that point where the solar plane intersects will be on the Tropic of Capricorn, as opposed to up on the Tropic of Cancer, right? It will actually come in under Earth's shield. So Earth has its shield, and then it also has its chambers. Here's the false front. Remember we talked about the false front one? We call them the caduceus rods, the ones that are the split-offs of the natural ones. The false front aligns here directly with the core of the sun, which aligns directly with the front of the one from PKA, or parallel Earth. All right. So every winter solstice, this alignment occurs. What it allows for are the gates to open inside here, not a full set of them, but enough where passage back and forth can occur. And there's about a 7-day period on each side where they start to open. They hit their peak on December 21st, and then they start to phase out again, where they start to close again. But literally every year at that time, this was done, so we've never been left alone. The people who set this stuff up have been here as our little wardens and prison keepers for a very long time. In the old days, we have stone circles and monuments here and there that seem to be lined up with, where a beam of light comes through on the solstice or on the equinox, right? They were taught to keep track of when the visitors would be back again, because the visitors were their gods, right? This is, once they wiped our memory and everybody was reduced back to, a primitive state where we couldn't remember languages, we couldn't remember anything, then they would come back and interface with us and teach us their languages and that kind of stuff, yeah. And they also taught how to use rudimentary calendars. And what they were keeping track of was this stuff. And every year, they would have a point where these gates would open, and that means the ones from parallel could come over and visit. Excuse me. Then, and there's specific alignments too. This is the false front rod, which is actually it's not the real back. The real back is offset a bit, the real rear chamber. But the false front aligns here. That means the false rear is there. It also means the false east is up here, east rod, and the false west rod is there. We call them false because they are actually reversed from what they should be as far as the natural rods that go in with higher Earth and median Earth and Achille and the rest. So what we're looking at here too on this is the solar chambers here. We got the front chamber and the Bardo chamber in the back, and I believe that's the east rod? Yeah, no, that's the west rod, and that's the east rod. I didn't put the rods on there. Now this, of course, spins too. It spins counterclockwise. So at periods of time, it aligns directly with the larger vortice lines that would be coming from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. There's another alignment down here that this would be, if you kept going, you would get to the center of the parallel Milky Way galaxy, the one that has the large false system in it. So there is an alignment period here. There are times when, as it's spinning, that it aligns with every one of these marks, right, that the solar rods and chambers would. Just like the planetary ones would. As they rotate, they shift a bit. But the front will always stay, like this front will always face in to the sun. This is the one that always links into the gates. And it creates an anomaly, because it should just be a nice little rod that sparks with these when they come by. But it's left open as an energy structure that doesn't belong there, interfacing with the front chamber from parallel. And that runs through our sun. But it literally controls, and the moon has something to do with this too, they literally control the movement of everything, from the tides to, the placement. All of this was to synchronize things so they could finish this, eat the solar system thing. And, it's like, it seems like they went to an awful lot of very long time trouble to find out that in 2976 it wasn't worth it anyway. But that doesn't mean they're going to give up now, unfortunately. And if they did give up now, what do you do with this mess? I mean, seriously, it's going to fall at this point. It's so damaged, I don't think they could repair, even if they said, here, beloveds, you take it, you fix it. I don't think you can fix something when it's been, messed up this badly. Excuse me. So this is just a year cycle that we're seeing. So this is looking at the winter solstice, and that is the alignment that always occurs. Ever since they synchronized the gates in 10,948 BC, this is the alignment that has always occurred and will continue to occur. The next would be moving counterclockwise. Next we would see the spring equinox. This gets interesting because as that's moving counterclockwise, this one is moving clockwise. And they're actually, their orbits are actually going to pass through each other. Next one, please. This is when they just start to pass through each other. So you had the parallel coming this way, and you don't see the parallel, of course, but it's there. And they don't see us, but they know we're there. And then we come this way, and they literally cross over. First, their fields form a Biveka configuration, or actually a Vesica Pisces configuration. And the east rod here, which is the PCM one coming from this one, that starts to blend with the west rod, the antiparticle west rod, and the antiparticle east rod starts to blend with the PCM west rod, except they're the false PCM. When it says PCM west, it means false west. We're using those alignments. I think they're going to expand on this, heaven help me, for Sarasota workshop, where they show where our alignments are too, as far as where is median Earth, where is are the alignments for higher Earth, so we can know what times. This is showing us that we can plot times from these cycles and know certain things are going to occur during those times. There will be other alignments that they will show us as far as where the rods and chambers of the median Earth and higher Earth fall into it. So we will know what times to kind of duck and puff up your fields and just kind of get through it, and what times to really soar, where you'll have energy coming in that that is supportive to what you're trying to do. Because there are times right now that the energy is not supportive at all, especially during these four alignments that everybody likes to go celebrate, right? Oh boy, what they're celebrating are parallel Earth wormholes opening. So they don't know that though. So when these come together, they first start with the overlap. And this goes about 7 days in each direction, too, with its highlight being March 21st, which would be the spring equinox. And these start to interface with the core gates, but also the vertical gates. So they start to interface with, I'm not sure where these align. I just left these in the position they are for 2012 because I knew I had to get to that diagram. So I just left these instead of trying to make them spin because it would have taken me forever to figure that out without animation. So I'm not sure where the solar rods and staff are, but I wouldn't doubt if they're aligned during this part. I wouldn't doubt if they do across this way. But it starts opening the vertical gates inside into the twisted wormhole structures. So these, when it just starts, it starts to allow things from a lot different places to come in, not just from parallel Earth, but other parts of the parallel system and other black hole interfaces through the galactic core, because it begins to interface with this line from the galactic center and also from parallel Milky Way galactic center. Next one, please. Now when it comes into full alignment, they become one temporarily. Answered my question of why did March seem horrible this year? It just like energetically was just one of the hardest months that I've been through in a long time. It just like really heavy energy and didn't know what that was about. I'm starting to get a clue now. So they do, as they're passing through each other, they have a period of 24 hours where they merge. And in that period, this is like, they should have called that Halloween, right? Where all the ghouls come out to play, right? Because it allows for, it's a much more powerful alignment than the one that just allows for the parallel earth gates to open. It allows for parallel earth gates to open, but also triggers the wormhole sets that go in through. Now the whole Milky Way isn't, all wormhole. Well, its center is, but there are places that are not fallen in the Milky Way, so you can get both on that line. But the wormholes start to pull stuff from the galactic chambers as well, because outside of, if you took the line, if you had if the center of the galaxy was out here, right, and you made one of the chambers, they would be huge, and they would come down like this, right, and they would follow that line, and then there would be another one coming from this direction. That was the parallel one. So it starts to interface at the equinoxes. The interface, direct pass-through, occurs. And it literally opens the center gates completely in Earth's core into the wormholes and the sun as well. So this is where you get like, demon fiestos, where they come in to do whatever they do. And there's a lot of rituals that take place, and that even in the ancient cultures were taught. They were taught to do certain celebrations and fertility rites, and a great way to make sure things come in to baby bodies and that kind of thing. So a lot of the things that were being taught in the ancient cultures that seem sweet and endearing, they were so smart because they had a spiritual relationship with the sun and could understand these things. That's true as far as how the people were. But what they were experiencing too was contact that was explaining to them how to do certain rudimentary things so they could chart when they were coming back. And they looked at them as gods. And even though a lot of them I'm talking about were us back then, where once you have your memory wiped, you're just like a child again, like that doesn't know how to speak yet, like an infant. You don't know how to speak. You don't remember who you are, how you got there, where you are, how to do anything. Like how to tie a shoe if you happen to have one on your foot. Memory wipes are brutal. It's like instant Alzheimer's, and you just wake up and you are, and that's all you kind of know. It's really a horrible experience. So the ancient people that were misled by the visitors who set this up, like the Mayans, I feel bad for the Mayan people because they're very devoted to Great Spirit and to following the guidance of their ancestors and all of that kind of thing. And the calendar was given to them. I believe Toads gave them the calendar. In order to help them understand about this, so they would know when the end time was coming, because it's right there in the Mayan calendar. That's why the whole big 2012 thing was coming up, because the Mayans called it, thousands of years ago, and even Nostradamus is calling it. The Bible keeps telling you about the end times, but they don't give a specific date. So it's all converging at this point. And it's like a little bit of race memory is just starting to resurface where, this is why, right? But not enough for anybody to do anything about it. We could, put this on CNN and nobody'd care. Most people would not care. Oh, well, whatever. They figure, good excuse to max out the credit cards, right? Because it's so big, it seems surreal. It doesn't seem real. And unfortunately, it is. So we have our lovely spring celebration of passing through parallel. Yay. This actually, we're going to bring the joy back in to the cycles of the seasons. I don't know what it is yet, but I was getting a nudge, and this is why the beloveds wanted you to be aware of this level of the information now, because they're going to be building on this into something where there's something fun and very healthy that we can do on those times too. This isn't about pulling away from the ones who are working the Metatronics. It's about embracing them and standing right next to them and saying, fine, you spin yours your way and we'll spin ours our way and let's just have a good time. which means that lovely big transharmonic Merkaba doorway that was created down at Skellig Michael, and that we're going to finish activating to its level 2 tonight after we get our activation to the level 2. We can do very interesting things at these power points in time, because when those gates open, we can actually set one of those transharmonics in, that if you're falling down that gate and you happen to have Chris codes, it'll pull you over this way so you can make a choice instead of just getting dragged into that reality. So we can actually co-join gates. Since they've got them there, we can put them there too, evac gates. So there will be things that we're going to be shown how to do on a larger scale, because some of this is going to have to do with knowing when to help the grid harmonics to hold together, because the stress points on the tectonics are going to be horrendous through the next 200 years because of this mess that is happening. The other option is to just let them go so there's no stress on the grids, and then it all just rolls. And then the sixth extinction is going down. So, so we may get more earthquakes, and we may get more of all of that, because, yes, we are resisting them pulling it down in. They can have it in 200 years. But give people enough chance to get out if they want to. So it could get very strange on the planet in the next 200 years. As far as climate changes and things, they will continue, and they will escalate. Hopefully we can keep them balanced. There's not a whole lot of other people on the planet that are going to care or even bother to try to do something about it. So the people who do come to the workshops and understand the level of the information that we are working with, we will be entrusted with being the grid keepers, literally, who are doing the right things instead of running your Merkabas in the wrong direction and that kind of stuff. So it's going to be an interesting 200 years. At this point, it's like, please, take me next week. All right? Let me go home. I'm tired. But, no, I'm just hoping these Merkabas, oh, they said something, by the way, before I forget. With the large transharmonic Merkabas, like the stationary ones that just sit and spin and open, these are going to become healing chambers. One of the things they want you to do, because I thought, I got the diagrams done, and I said, you better expand time, beloveds. I need another week to get down what you want done here. And they said, you don't have to type the next technique. This one's easy. I said, easy? Yeah, right. You said the first one was easy, and there was only like 3 times 14 steps to that one. And it was easy when you're verbalizing it. But it was much harder to get it all down in typing. I don't have a huge typing speed or anything. But they said, once the activation takes place, they will get us into the density 2 level activation of the transharmonic Merkaba, which means we will have a Jade body activated, right? And that means you can fly at a moment's notice if necessary. So if they had to pull shield, you would be able to, to go. But we can go into, they want us to learn to project into these spots. Right now, there's only 3 of them. Well, right now, there's only 1.5. We brought part of one with us up from when we were in the Skellig Michael area. So we have a part of one here, like an imprint of the big one we made and sent the other way. We've got a faint version of that here. We've got the one down in Skellig Michael, and there's going to be one by the end of this morning. There's going to be one that splits off, that pulls the Ark of the Covenant in. So there's going to be 3 spots that you can project to right now. Once we have the FOL thing at